Hi, welcome to Infusion Health, the podcast. I'm comedian Cris Patrick, a.k.a. Self-Proclaimed Power Man. And I'm here with my co-host, Rach.
Hey, guys.
Now, today we got an interesting show. We got Rachel Doherty and Sarah Rainey, and they have a daughter who was diagnosed. She's 6 years old. She was diagnosed with ALS, with cancer, and we're going to talk about a lot of things that people don't talk about, and stuff that we should talk about is the medical care and the treatment for their daughter. And why do people have to go into debt and sell their houses and all that just to get medical treatment in America? So, Sarah and Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Oh, thanks for being on. So, you guys also have a business called Crystal Tendencies. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So we are an online crystal shop. We mostly do live sales on TikTok, and then we also have our website, which is crystaltendencies.com.
Okay, Crystal Tendencies. Now we're talking rocks or crystals or.
It is. We call our official name is Crystal Tendencies Rock Shop, but it's crystals. It's rocks.
Okay.
Actual rock.
Okay. Now you two also have a daughter, and a couple years ago she was diagnosed with ALS, which is a form of cancer. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So she was diagnosed in 2020 with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Okay. It is a form of leukemia, and we got lucky because it is B cell. That's a horrible thing to say. You got lucky because you were diagnosed with cancer, but her form is fairly common, and there's a lot of research about it. Mm-hmm. And they have advanced medical techniques with that particular form. So in one sense, we were really lucky.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the most common leukemia for children that are diagnosed with between the ages of 2 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you guys, for those parents that are saying, I don't know what's wrong with my kid, how did you guys find this?
So it was about June, very beginning of June. She was having some issues. We thought she had an infection. Mm-hmm. She had a UTI, which was strange because she's 4 years old, and that's just not, she'd never had any complaints of that before. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So at the time, you have to keep in mind that COVID was rampant.
Right.
So a lot of pediatricians and stuff like that, they really didn't want to see their kid in person unless something was really wrong. Mm-hmm. So we take her to a local children's emergency, little center. And they gave her some antibiotics and 10 days worth of antibiotics. And she seemed to be doing better. She stopped complaining of any type of pain or anything like that. And she finished the antibiotics. And within a couple of days, I would say maybe 3 days, 4 days, she immediately started complaining about different symptoms. Mm-hmm. So some type of infection.
But it was the same as far as she had fever. She was tired. You could tell just by looking at her that she wasn't feeling good.
Sure.
So we went, two rounds of antibiotics, and the same thing happened on the second round. As soon as she was off the antibiotics, fever came rushing back, and she was just steadily getting worse.
Well, when you say antibiotics, what antibiotics was she on?
I don't even remember.
It was the bubblegum one.
Probably the normal ones that people, doctors.
Yeah, I believe so. Okay. And the second round, they gave us something stronger because they thought whatever it was, it just came back a second time. And that time we did a video appointment with her regular pediatrician.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And when that didn't work, they came back. Our pediatrician said, okay, you know what? It's time to do blood work. And we did blood work for about.
I took her to get the blood work done, and the next morning they called and they said that there must have been a mistake at the lab because her hemoglobin was so low. They were like, that's impossible for her hemoglobin to be that low. She would be not conscious, basically.
Mm-hmm. the float that they used was it was not compatible with life.
Yeah, that's what they. So they thought the lab made a mistake, and they told us to take her back to get more labs done.
Right.
So I took her a second time, 2 days in a row. The next morning, they called us and literally said, "Stop whatever you're doing. Get Vera, get her to the hospital now, because the second round of labs matched the first round, and we don't know if she's still conscious."
Wow.
So, of course, we rushed her to, Rachel rushed her to the emergency room. It's because of COVID, it was only one parent allowed.
Sure.
I stayed home with our son, and she took her, and I'll let you tell that story.
Yeah, they met us at the front door of the emergency room, took her immediately back, and started working on her. She was almost, at that point, she was really lethargic.
Okay.
She just wasn't, she would wake up and talk to you, but it was almost mumble.
Right.
So they immediately took her back, started working on her, got IVs, and there was just, when I tell you, it sounded like there was a fire truck in the emergency room. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Of all,
because I think the nurse looked at the 2 labs that she had done and looked at her and even said, "That's not possible. These labs have to be wrong." And so that nurse did another round of labs. And as soon as those labs came back, they literally came rushing in the room and just grabbed Vera and put her on the room. It was like, "Follow us. We got to go now.
We got to go right now."
And then
Eventually,
go ahead.
They told us that they didn't understand how she was alive, that we were hours away from losing her. But
they started immediate transfusions, blood transfusions and platelets. And once they got her stable, that's when they started testing for everything,
right,
just to figure out what was going on.
So they did the test, and then that's when they found out that she had ALS.
ALL, B cell.
ALL. I'm sorry. That's when they found out.
That's when they found out, and it was funny because no one would tell me what was wrong. Of course, I'm the panicked mama bear, so I'm asking, "What is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong?" And they really wouldn't tell me. And that's when our doctor, whom we love and adore, he walked into the emergency room and introduced himself. His name is Dr. Gisoli. He is amazing. And he started asking questions. He was very calm. And he told me at the time, he still didn't give me the diagnosis, but he said, once we have her stable, we're going to take her up to the pediatric oncology unit. Yeah. And that was our first hint that, they're taking her up to that floor. And the doctor was a pediatric oncologist. So Rachel called me and she's like, "I'm just telling you now that they're taking us up to oncology." And I was like, "Well, that's not good." Yeah, that's not great. It was still, another couple of hours before they finally said the words, "Your daughter has cancer. Your daughter has leukemia."
Okay, so, and that was 2 years ago. So since then, what has it been? What has it been like dealing with this? Working with this?
Hey guys, we'll be right back. Sit tight.
Hi, this is Ross, the host of Smells Like Humans, a show about interesting and quirky human behavior. We bring humor, empathy, and warmth to topics such as relationships, dating, work, self-compassion, weddings, phobias, aging parents, travel mishaps, death, and many more. Ever wonder what happens at a cuddle party? We talk about it. Free-range kids in restaurants? We've got some thoughts. Bedtime stories for adults? We're on it. Light, fun, unscripted conversation and personal stories. Please join us by clicking the link in the show notes.
Oh, it has been a roller coaster, a whirlwind. There's medicine every single day, and she takes 3 different forms of chemo. She takes pills at night, almost every day. She has intravenous chemotherapy, and then she has lumbar punctures I'll let Sarah talk more about the medicine part of it.
Yeah. So she takes one chemo pill every single day, and she has every single day since she was diagnosed. The same medication she's taken every day.
Mm-hmm.
Call it 6MP is the short name for it. I think it's like mercaptine or something.
Okay.
But everybody calls it 6MP, and that's what she takes daily. And then once a week, she takes methotrexate. So every Monday she takes that. And then she has a Metaport in her chest, and we go and she gets chemo in her port. And then she also every 3 months now, it's broken down into stages.
Mm-hmm.
Frontline treatment is basically like your really intense treatment in the very beginning. So it's about the first 10 months or so.
Okay.
And then it's been in what they call maintenance phase since then.
Mm-hmm.
So maintenance phase is it's not as intense because there was one time where she literally, I had to take her to the hospital 3 times in 8 days to get chemo and support. Mm-hmm. And then there was another phase where she got a particular chemo med. She only got it that one time, but I had to give her a shot at home 5 days in a row.
Okay.
And that was cool. So yeah, every phase has been different, and there's different types of chemo. It's kind of those first 10 months, they just throw everything at you.
Everything.
That's when the kids are really sick. She didn't walk barely at all for several months. The very first couple of months, I would have to carry her literally to the bathroom.
Right. She became incontinent. That's when lost a lot of her hair. She was very, very weak.
Mm-hmm.
Her to eat and drink. And that's the other thing, there's complications with it. Getting her to drink enough water and stay hydrated, getting her to eat and just having the calories. And then, there's bathroom issues because of the medication. So there's severe constipation. We went to the emergency room at least 3 different times for C. diff. And it was just a complication of the medication she had.
Yeah, side effects of the meds can be brutal. And the thing is a lot of these medications that these kids are given, I mean, there hasn't been a new medication for childhood cancer developed, I think since like the 70s or something.
Mm-hmm.
And medications that they are given, they were made for adults. They weren't made for little kids.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, little kids have such severe side effects from these things.
Mm-hmm.
Not just right when they're taking them, but I mean lifelong side effects. I believe it's like 1/3 or 2/3 of all kids will have lifelong side effects from the medications that they take, because they're basically poison.
Yeah.
But it's not like you have an option.
No.
You have to do it.
Well,
For the listeners that don't understand, they are literally pumping, when they're taking care of any kind of cancer, they're literally pumping poison through you. They're trying to kill the cancer, but they're trying not to kill you at the same time.
So when you say kill the cancer, you mean kill, because cancer is caused by carcinogens. So when you say kill the cancer, they're trying to kill this. They're trying to kill the cancer cells, the carcinogens.
Well, pediatric cancer is different from adult cancer because it's not necessarily. It's a lot of it is genetic, and it's cell mutation, and it's not necessarily from being exposed to carcinogens. Like, an adult who gets lung cancer who's been smoking for 30 years, it's no surprise, how they got it or where they got it. But leukemia in children and, Hodgkin's, there's different types, but they really don't know. There's not really a specific answer as to how or why. Like, we'll never know why there's cancer. It's not one of those, well, if you smoked for 30 years, you got lung cancer, obvious thing.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's really frustrating as a parent because, you just have that guilt, especially in the beginning. I think it's gotten easier as time has gone on, but I would say definitely that first 6 months was, we just racked our brains. We'd stay up at night being like, was it something we did or something we didn't do? Was it,
was it the house? Was it the environment? Did I do something to my kid?
Yeah.
It's the backyard, the dirt that the kids play in. Is it, swimming pool? Is it, grandma and grandpa's house? Is it, the type of food you let them eat, or the types of food that they didn't eat a lot of? I mean, it's just, you almost kill yourself trying to figure out how this happened, how this could happen.
That's another thing that people don't talk about is the parents, because you're trying to be present for your child and not show fear in front of them and just trying to help them through it. But when, in those quiet moments, the emotional toll that it takes for this journey, because treatment is, you're looking at minimum 2 to 3 years, minimum.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional toll on your child and on yourself as a parent is intense. It's extreme.
And I think medical PTSD is not really talked about a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And especially in children. Vera definitely has struggled with that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you do everything you can, but, it's just a very traumatic thing for anybody to go through, much less a 4-year-old,
And then on top of that, you get these medical bills. So when was your first gouging medical bill?
First day. First day.
The first bill that we officially got handed was, I think it was almost $9,000.
Well, that was just the hospital.
That was just for the 6 days in the hospital, but that didn't include labs. That didn't include
her actual treatment. That was just her stay at the hospital. That was a bed, a room.
Is that
all that?
Is that with insurance, without insurance, minimal insurance? What kind of insurance?
The bill, because we got the bill breakdown, and the hospital bill was $252,000. Our portion was $9,000.
And that's with insurance.
That's with insurance.
That's with insurance.
If we hadn't had insurance, it would have been $252,000.
And that's just the hospital. We're not talking about her medication or the doctor or the anesthesiologist or any of
having her Mediport put in,
her surgery, her medication. That doesn't include any of that. That is literally just her room, her bed, and getting fluids. That's not anything to do with the treatment.
Still got I think 4 or 5 other bills besides that, and I don't remember what those added up to be, but so that was
I think the anesthesiologist bill came in, and that was a lot because she was under sedation several times during that first week. And when we were first diagnosed, we were in the hospital for a week. And that was, because she had to have scans to make sure she didn't have tumors and all kinds of different stuff. She had to have CAT scans because they were looking to see if it had passed the blood-brain barrier.
Sure.
She had to have all kinds of stuff. And that was almost $7,000 alone just for that week. Then, the medication bills. To go in debt for this treatment, we are well over $100,000 in medical bills that are our portion.
That's our portion. That's after insurance.
That's after insurance.
Well, back in the day, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, but in the 50s, 60s, the doctor wasn't the richest man in the neighborhood. Okay, a lot of people went into medicine because they wanted to help people. Now, one of the things that goes on now is that we have for-profit hospitals, and with these for-profit hospitals, why is ours the only country that has these hospitals where people literally have to sell their houses and all that just to pay for medical treatment? And I've said it before, I don't think that's right.
No, I agree. And actually, I looked at the statistics one time, and I don't have them with me on hand, but it's something crazy, the percentage of parents that go into that have to either declare bankruptcy or go into massive debt. Actually, a friend of mine, her daughter passed away she had a brain tumor. She had cancer, and she was 7 years old, I think, when she was 6 years old when she passed. And they're still paying on those bills. Yeah. And that would have been almost 10 years ago. And they're still paying those medical bills.
Well, these medical bills are already extreme, but then you're also changing their lifestyle. I mean, yeah, as a parent, I've got 5 kids. I'd be like, okay, I've got to change their environment. I got to change their food. I've now got to pay for gas, no matter how far away this doctor is, to get my child to wherever they need to be for their doctor's appointments or the emergency appointments.
Yeah, I think that's something that people also don't think about is just the gas getting to and from the hospital. Because you go, I mean, especially in this first 10 months, you're practically at the hospital 2 or 3 times a week. Easy. Yeah. And then, you have to pay for parking because the hospital's for profit. You got to pay for parking. It ain't free.
Yeah.
We have to take time off work.
Yeah. Well, like I had to completely stop working because you also got to keep in mind COVID was going on.
Yeah.
So it's not like we can have somebody come over and take care of her. And not only that, but when your kid's that sick, you want to be with them. And not only that, but they want to be with you. You don't want them, especially a kid that young.
Yes.
I mean, maybe if it's a teenager or something to be a little bit different. But a 4-year-old, when they're that sick, they're not interested in anybody else taking care of them. And it's like you can just drop them off at daycare,
No.
I mean, we would never have done that, but
I think even with a teenager, though, because I have teenagers and they'd be terrified. They'd be like, Mom, I lived all these years so far and I have so many more, because you're thinking about when you're a parent, you're thinking about the day that they're going to get married, the day that they're going to hold their own children, the day that you're going to see your great grandchildren. You don't think about, oh my gosh, am I going to keep this kid alive? Are these medical bills going to make it so I can't keep my kid alive? Like I have to choose what I need to do in my family.
Yeah,
absolutely. We definitely face those types of decisions. And we did have to change the way we eat. We went from a 2-income household to one with additional expenses, and then trying to overhaul the way our house is. It was everything from getting different type of soap and towels and sheets and, we
got air purifiers. Because they're so sensitive to infection. So we had, and when I say we had to clean the house, I'm not just talking about like we had to straighten up or do this, we had to come, I had to come before she came home from the hospital. I had to literally sterilize the house.
Yeah.
On the wall.
Yeah. Type thing. And we had to keep, we constantly, because any type of bodily fluids from her are considered biohazard, we had to make sure that our children were no longer using the same bathroom. So we had our son move all of his stuff into our bathroom so that she had her own bathroom. So if she got sick in there, you can't let your kids, like if your kids are little and they bathe together, which our kids didn't anymore, they were old enough, but some people, their kids are still young. You can't let your kids bathe together anymore. They have to take separate baths. It's an entire life change.
Yeah.
And then plus, Aiden couldn't go to school, so we had to keep him home. And he did virtual school on the computer. So there was days that I would be up all night with her because she would be sick. And the alarm clock would go off to get him up for school before I ever even got to close my eyes. So there was literally days where I just didn't get to sleep. And then, I had to work because that was our only income. So I had to let her get sleep. So, it was definitely a divide and conquer type situation between the two of us.
Well, my thing is that, like, okay, looking at this, if you were in Canada, most of that would have been taken care of. But when we say that, when we look at our neighbors to the north and say, well, hey, if we were in Canada, then what the politicians, because they're getting paid off by the doctors, by the hospitals, they come around and say, oh, well, that's socialism. That's socialism. Taking care of your kid and all that is not, I don't think it's socialism, but going into debt, having to pay with these for-profit hospitals, and I'm not sure when they made them for-profit, but these for-profit hospitals where you get like that, where you got to pay for medication and stuff like that, where, and they say, well, you got to wait you got to wait 5 hours in line for to get medical treatment, you know, in Canada. But the thing is that if you ever seen Sickle by Michael, I forgot his name, but anyways, if you ever see something like that, they say that's not true. But you got these for-profit hospitals where good, hardworking, regular middle-class people like you and ourselves have to go into debt just to pay for medical treatment. And like I've said before, that is not right.
Well, I don't think it's just the hospitals. I also think it's Big Pharma, and that's a future conversation that we're going to have with these beautiful ladies. But right now, you know,
the giant healthcare conglomerates are out of control in this country, 100%.
So when we switch medication, okay, so I'll tell you, at one point I lost my job. My job at that particular company let me go because we were spending too much time in the hospital and they wanted attendance.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to switch insurance companies. And then when we switched insurance companies, it was, oh my gosh, trying to make sure that the policy that we got covered her medication.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was insane. It was insane. And then the price of her medication is, I mean, it's thousands and thousands of dollars every month. Every month.
Well, I've always said a thief is a thief. You know, I can go and stick a gun in somebody's back and say, "Give me your money." Yeah, that would make me a robber, and yeah, I should be put in jail for that. But when you have somebody in a suit, like if you look at insulin, when insulin first came on the market, the people who invented insulin, they sold it for $1 because they said this is going to help people. Now you got people having to go to Congress and make their case in front of Congress to go, hey, make insulin prices cheaper. You know, I'm something that only cost them $1. You know, and that's a for-profit thing where why isn't insulin free for people? You know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a pharmacy technician for like 15 years before we were diagnosed. So yeah, I can go on and on and on about Big Pharma and exactly how I feel about that. And
what was the quote at our highest point of medication? What was the quote per month of her? I think it was over $13,000 per month. That was a monthly cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I know the very first time that the doctor ordered 6-NP, of course, our insurance kicked it back and said that they didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah,
because
that's another problem that families have.
Here's the thing is they only wanted to pay for the generic, which is fine and dandy, except for the fact that the generic only comes in pill form. She's 4 years old. She never swallowed this.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to, luckily I had been a pharmacy tech and I've worked in, prior authorization departments, and I knew how that game worked. And so, I mean, luckily for us, I was able to, well, they denied it and I got it approved, but I got them to pay for it. But it still took a couple of days. But, the common person who doesn't have that knowledge, they would have gotten frustrated and given up and paid cash if they could afford it, which was I think it was $4,000 for one bottle, which lasted right about 30 days. So either, or they just, I don't even know what people do that don't know how to do that, because that's crazy. Because even our doctor told us.
Well,
what movie was it that Denzel Washington played in? And his son had heart problems.
Oh, Jonathan or something.
John Q?
I think it was John Q.
And people wonder, how can a parent do that? They're going to lose all that time with their kid. But literally, when you're being squeezed between money and your child, you're going to pick your child every time.
Yeah, every time. You'll sell everything. Everything. You'll live in your car if that's or a tent, or move back to your parents' house, or what. You will literally do anything. And that's the thing is these healthcare conglomerates, they know that, and it's why they take full advantage of you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why the medications, the type of medications, the ones that actually, you have to live, are the most expensive, because they know no matter what, you're going to figure out a way to pay for it.
Yeah.
Whether it's, Medicaid or, you selling your soul, whatever it is, you're going to figure out a way. So that's how they get away with charging, ridiculous amounts of money for these things.
Which brings me to my next question. We're coming up on an election year. When we go to these rallies and we go to these caucuses and we meet these candidates, these are the questions we should be asking these candidates as far as what are you going to do about bringing drug prices down? What are you going to do about big pharma? And I just want to ask you what party or what candidates do you support in trying to get in, and what can we do as a people to get this to take care of this, to get this better?
Well, I will say, I mean, as far as candidates, I don't know, but I will say that on the right and the left, however you want to look at it, Republican, Democrat, they're both just as guilty.
Yeah.
They both have their hands in it. They're both, financially gaining from it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say one's worse than the other. They usually get paid off by the same lobbyists on both sides. So that's the hard part, is finding somebody that, their pockets aren't getting filled, because it's happening on both sides, And that's the part that's really frustrating, is you can't look at it and be like, oh, well, the Democrats, they don't do this, or the Republicans, they don't do this. No, they're both guilty.
Yes.
They both do it. And I think that's even more frustrating.
And another thing, yeah, sorry to cut you off, but another thing that's frustrating about these politicians is one will agree to a bill to sign off, to vote for this bill, even though it's against everything they believe on. So because the other one agreed, so they're not going family forward. They're going, how do I fail my agenda?
Well, and the thing you have to realize is all of those people, they've never had to struggle to pay for medication. They've never, I mean, maybe in their younger days or something, but by the time that they're up there in politics, they're not having to worry about paying for medication or hospital bills, or, it's just not something that's relevant to them.
Yeah.
So it's a concern to them,
Well,
and I mean,
keep
talk
going.
about pediatric cancer is only given 4% of government funding for cancer research every year. Why are we only, our kids are only worth 4%? Like, what are we doing here?
And thankfully, the hospital that we were at and the doctor group that we had, it was a research hospital, and they were very active in cancer research and doing studies. And we got so lucky. Again, I use that word, and it sounds so strange to say lucky when you're talking about pediatric cancer, but we lucked into getting with a group of doctors that was, research forward. They wanted to do the studies. They offered it to us. They told us about the medication trials that Vera may do well under. And, for that, you have to be thankful.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, we could go on for we could go on for hours and hours talking about this, but we only have a 30-minute show. This has been a very interesting conversation, and good luck, and I mean that. Good luck with your daughter, and I hope is she getting better now?
Yes, she is getting better. We are out of frontline, which is the worst. Those first 10 months. That's the worst of it, and we have it through. She's still in treatment. We're still going through it, but it's not nearly as intense. And we hope that she will finish within the next year, if all goes well.
Okay.
Blessings.
Yeah, blessings, definitely. And this is, like I said, it's been an interesting conversation. If people want to get a hold of Crystal tendencies, or if people want to do know more about this, or who can they write to or anything like that, you guys got a website or an email or something they can get in contact with you?
Well, they're definitely on TikTok, so I'll put that link in there.
Okay, yeah. And Rachel will have that in the descriptions. And
is there any other way you guys want people to get a hold of you?
Sure. Just our website, crystaltendencies.com. You can go to the contact form and reach us there. it goes straight to our email. So we are happy to talk with anyone that has any questions.
And as far as taking on Big Pharma, is there anybody? Can you give information on who to write to or anything like that?
Well, maybe that's in our next conversations because we'll be bringing them back to talk about Big Pharma.
Okay. Okay. Well, ladies, it was great having you on. And like I said, blessings to your daughter and thoughts and prayers, everything going to them. And let's hope she gets better.
Absolutely. Recovery forward.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know it's hard to talk about, and thanks a lot for coming on. I really hope that this helps people and people can learn more about this and definitely have somebody to talk to if they are going through this. And I'll let Rach, if she has anything else, I'll let Rach close us out.
All right, you guys, we come to the end. If you liked what you heard, subscribe and tell others. And our closing is, as always, history is born on lines of hate. And here we're trying to build lines above and make you guys your best advocate, even when holding your family tight. Have a great one.
Take it easy.